If you're going to bake your mesh detail into a texture, it's pretty obvious that you're going to need to unwrap your scene at some point, and while GamiFlow won't do it entirely for you, it will certainly save you some time. The idea is that you place seams on the geometry as usual, tweak some parameters here and there on your objects, and then all you have to do is click one button to recompute all your UVs in one go. So let's start with the seams. There's nothing special, it's pretty much what you've always been doing. You're gonna select some edges somewhere, mark some seams, harden some edges until it looks good. So what I like to do is usually start with Shift V and click on Set Smoothing so that I've got smooth shading everywhere, which should be the default if you're gonna bake things, and then we're gonna manually harden edges where it makes sense. It also adds a weighted normal modifier, which I think is really good practice if you want to have some pretty good normals to begin with. I'm going to isolate this and also disable the bevel for now so that we can see what we're doing. And this looks like a nice place for some seams. So I'm going to press Shift V again. Now that we're in edge mode, the menu is different. And I'm going to click on Mark Hard Seam. So this is the equivalent of doing right-click, Mark Seam, and then again mark right-click and Mark Sharp. But because I tend to do that a lot, I've made a little shortcut where I can just do both of them at once. Mark Soft Seam is just the normal, is the equivalent to just doing right-click and Mark Seam. So here I'm going to make another hard seam. And for this one, I want a soft seam. So I'm going to do this. And now we're pretty much sorted. All I have to do is come here and unwrap. And like, I'm not super happy with the shape of it. I mean, it's kind of correct, but it's not great. So I'm going to try the other methods. Minimum stretch is usually a little bit better. That's the new method from the latest version of Blender. I quite like it. So I'm going to remember those settings, and I'm going to come here, and I'm going to make sure that this is what I've got here. So minimum stretch and times 10, and this is what GamiFlow is going to use the next time you press on the unwrap button. So I'm going to put the bevel back. I'm going to unhide everything, and I'm going to press unwrap and see if our little barrel thing at the back looks good. So I'm going to press show UVs, and where is this? Yeah, that looks pretty good. This is pretty much what we wanted, except now it's packed in the middle of our entire scene. So great. And the beauty of it is that now if, for example, I decide to move some, make some small adjustments, I don't have to remember which objects I've adjusted since the last time. I don't need to like re-unwrap individually. I just come here, I just click unwrap, and don't have to think about it. It takes a few seconds on larger scenes, but then, once you've done it, it's fine. You're all sorted. You don't need to worry about anything. I'm going to undo that because I do not like those those modifications. And one other thing I want to show you is what happens when, it's not super great. Like, no matter what unwrap method I use, this is always going to be very warped. Like, minimum stretch is, again, a slightly better option. But it's still not good enough. So there is this smooth option here, which is equivalent to coming here and doing minimize stretch. I'm going to increase the count, but even with very large counts, first it takes quite a while, and second it's still not great. So what I need to do now is fix everything manually. There's just no way around it. If you've got some nice plugins, you can probably use them to kind of gridify everything here. I'm going to try to fix it manually. Maybe that's something you've never seen before. So let's go. Oops, no, not that. Like this, then like this, and then like this. And now we've got something that looks more or less square. I'm going to select this. Select everything else, come here, go unwrap, follow active quads, and boom, now we've got a nice little grid. But I want to make sure that GamiFlow doesn't override what I've just done, so I'm going to untick unwrap here, and hopefully the next time I click unwrap for everything, it's going to remember what I did here and use that instead of the automated settings. So let's see, yeah, it's got the nice grid, all is well. And those of you with a keen eye might have noticed that I'm using a lot of mirror modifiers on my mesh. For example, here we've got a mirror and like pretty much everything you can imagine, those wheels that are all mirrors and arrays and things. And that's usually a pretty good thing to do because it's going to save you a lot of UVs. Like this wheel is only once in the UV space, but it's also used on the other side. It's the same object here. But the problem is, if you do that, whenever you bake, you're going to get some weird triangle-shaped artifacts in some maps, like the position map or the normal or the world space normal map. And that is something you want to avoid, and to avoid it, you normally have to come here and then, click on like change offset UV and put a value of 1, and you have to remember to do that and to undo it if in your final mesh, and it's a mess. So the good news is you shouldn't have to worry about this. Like GamiFlow will do it for you. If I click make low and then look at my low poly mesh, you can see that the offset has been set to 1 and 1. So you don't have to worry about it. It's perfectly fine. If I go on the export mesh, so the final mesh, and I look at the wheels, well actually I can't look at the wheels because everything has been merged into one big mesh. But if you check this and this side, they are perfectly stacked. So this is pretty much is great news because it means you don't ever have to worry about stacked UVs and how they might badly bake in Substance or other bakers. So this hopefully gives you the basics of how you can get some quick and dirty UVs going in GamiFlow. In the next video I'll show you some of the more advanced options to really improve their quality.